We are now halfway through the season of Ahsoka, and what better time to engage in some baseless speculation for charity? So the way this video is going to work is I'm going to be going through all of the main characters of Ahsoka and saying whether I think they're going to make it through the season or not. So for each character, I'm going to be giving them a rating on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being I think they are almost definitely going to make it to the end of the season, and 1 being I think they are not going to survive the season. And for each character, every one rating that I'm off means I'm donating $5 to the local food bank here in Ottawa. So if I were to give a character a 1 and they make it through the season, that's 4 points off from 5, that's $20. So we'll go through each of the main ones. I think I have everyone who could reasonably deserve a spot on this. But I did this for The Mandalorian Season 3, and I had some characters that I was kind of close on, some that I was way off on. So it should be fun either way, and kind of just... I want to use it also as an opportunity to talk a little bit about where some of the character stories I think they're going. So the first character I think we will talk about, I have my notes on my phone, I'm not just texting in the middle of the video, but the first character we're going to talk about I think is Ahsoka herself. So I think that Ahsoka's story, she's kind of growing into her position as Sabine's master after we saw a really rocky start at the start of the season. And we've been getting a lot of little hints at her being in a bit of a darker place, like talking about how she was using torture to get the information she wanted. And I think a lot of that is probably going to come out or be a topic of discussion with Anakin in the next episode, if that even is the actual Anakin, if they're not just going to fight each other or something. I don't know. But I almost feel like she will probably survive the season, but I also think that she's not going to be involved in the galactic kind of day-to-day. I feel like there's going to be some sort of like almost symbolic spirit guardian position she takes up in some kind of way, especially with like everything with the Mortis arc and the daughter and her having the little owl Morai following her around everywhere now. But like I just don't know if we're going to get a second season. That's what really throws some of it off. That would make speculating about her a little bit easier. And we do still only have 4 episodes left, and I think there's a lot she has to go through with Sabine, but I do think there is a chance that she does die at the end of the season, or just kind of make some sort of sacrifice. I don't think it'd be an actual death, but I'm giving her a 4, because I do think she's still going to be around in some sense, but I don't think it's going to be... I don't think she's going to be just fully involved in the New Republic or something by the end of it. So that's the one where I'm kind of most interested, at least, or most unsure about what her endpoint might be. And of course, I'm probably way off on everyone, but that's kind of the point. So, Ahsoka, we are putting as our first 4. Next up, we have Sabine, the other half of that master-apprentice pair, and Sabine, I think, has been my favorite character throughout this part of the season. We're kind of seeing her melding her desire to get the Jedi training in order to kind of connect with Ezra in a way, and starting to see more of her Mandalorian skills come back out. So I do like what they're potentially doing of kind of showing the element that we've always heard about, where anyone can be a Jedi with the right training, and it's really just a difference in innate talent or potential that makes it more or less difficult. I did a few clips on this on my short form lore channel, but like even George in the earlier days of Star Wars had been talking about how this was a possibility. We've seen it in the Legends Expanded Universe, where George Cardass had learned some mastery of the Force, even though he isn't someone that would typically be considered a Jedi candidate. So I do think we're going to see some Force use out of Sabine, but I think we are setting her up for a story down the line, rather than this being the end of her road. So I think Sabine is a pretty safe 5 for me, and I kind of think that I've seen a lot of speculation of Sabine is going, or rather, Jason Syndulla would be ending up, or would end up being trained by Luke, which I think is really unlikely, or Ezra, which I think could work. But I think Sabine will be involved in that training as well. So I think that's kind of where she's going to be going from here. So I'm pretty confident in leaving Sabine at a 5. Third, we have another character who I think is going to be a 5. She has a bit less going on right now, but it's Shin. So Shin and Balin have been I think, a really great addition in Ahsoka. I think Dave Filoni gets a lot of uh, flack, I guess, for how much he focuses on his other original characters, um, and how much like they might come in and take over a show. But I think in this case, we have two characters that have been uh, that have worked really well in the setting. That are Balin, especially. I'm really interested to see kind of what his deal is and what's motivating him. So I do think Shin is a bit more, or a bit less fleshed out than Balin as far as her position on things, her views, her motivations. Right now, she's almost too on the just like let's fight everyone side for even what seems to be Balin's taste, where this kind of seems like it's all she's known, being trained as this kind of dark Jedi, where Balin has kind of moved into that position after having been a Jedi before. So he has a few more nuanced positions on things, and he's telling her not to attack Sabine when Sabine has handed over the map. But I do think we're probably headed for the standard Star Wars redemption thing. I think she might go a little too ham on something, but then maybe Balin might sacrifice himself to save her or something like that. And we'll see an almost marriage age story. I think that's typically how people have framed it, but I wouldn't be surprised if that does end up being the case. I don't think she's dying in this series. I also wouldn't be surprised if she ends up surviving the series, not being redeemed yet, and ending up as like one of the kind of principal minions of Thrawn heading into Dave Filoni's movie. So I think those are all kind of viable options for her, but I don't see her getting killed before the end of the series. Unfortunately, on the other side of that coin, we have Balin, who I don't think is going to be surviving. So we have Shin at a 5. I'm putting Balin at a 2. I feel like he's kind of being set up as him and Morgan being kind of the two primary oppositional forces in Ahsoka. And I don't think Balin is going to either live or... If he were to live, I feel like he would have to be abandoning the Thrawn quest and kind of turning against Thrawn. Maybe not actually being redeemed, but not holding on to whatever the goal is with Thrawn. So I really like his story so far, and if he did survive, then I'd be interested to see where his character goes. Unfortunately, Ray Stevenson has passed away, so I don't know if that would result in like a recasting or something, or if just I think the worst case scenario as far as the character goes would be to have him survive this season, then we just never get anything more of him, more of his story, because unfortunately Ray is dead. And it is a shame to not have Ray be able to see what I think has been a pretty overwhelmingly positive response to his portrayal of the character. So I do have Balin at a 2. I don't think he's going to be sticking around as either a villain or an ally long term. So I think I'm happy to have him at a 2. On the other hand, Morgan, or I guess this is kind of the same hand. Morgan, I am pretty confident is going to be dying. Like if there's one antagonist that's going to not make it through the series, I do think it's Morgan. And I think her role as the person who is communicating with Thrawn and going to rescue Thrawn will be fulfilled after this season. So there might be another like Night Sister initiate that comes up and becomes another dark side Force user, or I guess you can't even really call Night Sister magic dark side Force use, but whatever. I don't think Morgan is going to make it past bringing Thrawn back to the galaxy, and that's kind of why I have Shin set up as like maybe she sticks around as kind of being that force, like a dark, because if in Filoni's movie you have to expect that there's probably going to be some amount of lightsaber duels, and that'd be the main thing that I am thinking would make Shin for sure and Balin less likely sticking around. Like I think having them around to be the oppositional force in those lightsaber duels is probably their main reason to still be around. But whereas Morgan, I think she, like, if anything's being defeated in Ahsoka, I think it would be her that gets taken down, like her in the Eye of Sion. But to jump back to the protagonist side, Hera, I think, is. I almost think of all the protagonists, she'd be the one that's most likely to die. I really hope she doesn't. Uh, but I still have her as a 4. I think she's going to stick around. And I don't know that Star Wars needs another orphan Force child. Like we just had in Jedi Survivor, we had well, spoilers, but we have Cal and Marin now taking care of Kata, and I feel like Ezra and Sabine taking care of Jason would be. I don't want to see too much of a parallel between all those character stories. Kind of like Ezra and Cal have a lot in common. I think Sabine and Marin have some similarities in their story of like kind of going more in the Jedi direction after being brought up in like the Mandalorians or the Night Sisters. So maybe Jason and Kata could be friends, but I don't think we're gonna be taking Hera out of the picture. I think Hera will stick around, but she'd be the character that I'm most afraid of having an untimely death. Like I think Ahsoka has a chance of dying or becoming some sort of mystical Force guardian, but Hera is the one that I'd be most afraid of for actually dying. But even then, I don't think it's going to happen. Then we have Ezra himself, who I think he's probably pretty safe to say he's surviving. Otherwise, they're going through all this effort to bring him back, and they're just going to bring Thrawn back instead. So I've got Ezra at a 5. There's not really much to say about his story yet. I'm really hoping we get a bit more of him in episode 4 through 8. I hope it's not just like he turns up at the end and that's kind of the end of the season. I'd love to see more from him. But I've kind of got the same opinion on Thrawn too. I've never thought that Thrawn would be taken down in Ahsoka. I think the show is setting him up as a villain for later. And I think most people are agreeing that Dave Filoni's movie is probably going to be more the culmination of the Thrawn storyline. So I think those two, I don't have to go into too much more detail. I think they're both going to live. So at the 5s, we've got Sabine, Shin, Ezra, and Thrawn. At 4, we have Ahsoka. 2 is Balin. 1 is Morgan. So I think I'm pretty happy with those. And I did want to do a little bit of a bonus round, not technically as involved in these scores, but there's 3 cameos that I have like different levels of possibility for, and I think the cameo that I was really thinking would be more likely towards the start of the season was Rex. I still think he'll probably show up either in like voice form or flashback form, but I'm less confident in him showing up like as himself in the modern day now, which is a little bit sad, but you know, he's getting up there. Hopefully he's still around. Because like we're really going to be heading into Peridian next, and then I think a lot of possibilities for characters from the known galaxy to show up are going to drop a bit. But slightly more likely than Rex, I have Pelion. Like I think Thrawn communicating with Pelion will happen at some point in this series. I think that'd be kind of the sign that Thrawn is getting reestablished in the galaxy. So I think Pelion is a pretty safe cameo bet. And then finally Zeb. I'm a little bit sad that Zeb hasn't shown up this far, especially now that if we are going to be jumping into Hera and Ahsoka leaving for the other galaxy, I think his chances of showing up before the finale get a little bit low. Like with the fleet shots, it seems like we're setting up for an actual fleet battle going on at some point. And I think Zeb would show up as a pilot in that. We know he's associated with Carson Teva. We don't know the order in which this is all happening, so does Carson go to Zeb afterwards? Were the scenes in Mando Season 3 for this? But I think like if I had to pick 3 characters that are still likely to show up that haven't yet, it would be Zeb as the most likely, Pelion as the second most likely, and Rex is still my kind of outside shot. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Which characters do you think are going to make it, which aren't? And please do not take spoilers or leaks and try to frame them as speculation, or try to like just take the leaks and say, actually, well, we know this is going to happen or that's going to happen. Because I've been doing my best to avoid seeing any of that, and I haven't really seen anything so far. So please don't ruin that for me. Either way, though, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and I hope you're enjoying Ahsoka. See you next time.